boys. Look at that Grand Champ. Look at that. Oh my. Now, a couple weeks ago, I asked my community the ultimate Rocket League question: what matters more, IQ or mechanics? And to my actual surprise, 82% of them voted IQ. Now, I won't lie, that surprised me. That actually surprised me, because you see so many players nowadays just trying to binge out mechanics and trying to have the best mechanical ability at their rank. And little do they know that mechanics in Rocket League can only get you so far. And what I mean by so far is like you're going to peak at maybe champ. I've been a Grand Champ in Rocket League for a decent amount of time now, and I've been pretty high up in all three of my ranks. I think my 3's peak was maybe 1450. My 2's peak I think was almost 1600, and my 1's peak, well, we don't need to talk about that. But if there's someone that's gonna know a lot about this stuff, it's definitely going to be me. And coming from personal experience and from a person who really doesn't utilize mechanics that much, even in Grand Champ now, mechanics aren't as useful as you think they are. But first, let's talk about the aspect of IQ. And let's break up IQ into what it really means. When we think about IQ, we're thinking mainly about game sense. And game sense, we can break up into 4 different principles. The first principle is your radius of coverage. And what this is exactly how much of the ball you can get in a specific zone in Rocket League. Now, Rocket League's radius of coverage is very different and distinct compared to other games like shooter games. In first-person shooter games, your radius of coverage is anywhere you can shoot in a straight line. So your radius of coverage could be a 180 at times, it could be a 90-degree angle at times, and it can even be 360 degrees at times. However, in Rocket League, it is much different. And not only is it much different, it is also much more difficult to control your radius of coverage. Now, as you can see on screen, your radius of coverage is basically a shell and can only cover so much of your area. It doesn't cover the complete area in that zone, you know, because in Rocket League, it's easier to get a ball when it's coming straight at you rather than when it's behind you or to your sides. Now, in my opinion, there's definitely different stages of radius of coverage. Depending on your rank, it kind of dictates how much you can cover at one time. And on the road to Grand Champ, I had to be able to decrease my radius of coverage from my teammate every rank I went up. Because on your way up, you need to understand that you need to keep constant pressure. And the only way of doing that is by minimalizing the amount of area that needs to be covered between you and your teammate and the ball. My second principle is vision. What vision basically is it's your field of view, or what you can see on your screen at that time. Now, if you're new to Rocket League, you don't know what you're doing, I'd suggest increasing your field of view, because I know at default it's usually like 90. Increasing it to maybe like the max it can go to, because you'll able to see more of your screen, more of the map, more of the game. But that's basically what vision is. How much of your screen or how much of the field you can see at a specific time or at a specific angle. Now, because of ball cam and car cam in Rocket League, 2 players who are positioned evenly from the ball can have 2 different views of the ball. And because players don't know how to utilize these 2 cams, they struggle to improve their vision, which is an essential thing in Rocket League and something many players seem to ignore. Because in reality, vision in Rocket League is what makes you make better decisions in game. If you aren't able to determine how far or close an opponent is from the ball, you're going to begin picking up this habit of hesitation. And that's something every Rocket League player should avoid, because with hesitation comes panic, and then rotations start to get broken, and it just becomes a free-for-all on the field. And coming off from just talking about radius of coverage, vision will basically help you determine how much coverage you should have in a certain position or certain play during the game. Whether you should keep a distance away from the ball or from your teammate, or close in on a ball, or help your teammate out in a specific situation. Vision is exactly what that's for. And if you're able to improve your vision, your all-around game will improve. Which leads me to my third principle, which is rotation. This one especially is super important, and I could even argue this is more important than any mechanic you will learn in Rocket League. Coming off the point we just talked about vision sets you up for how you will rotate in the game. If you aren't able to see where your teammate is at all times, rotations won't exist. It'll be players double committing on balls, leading to open nets or even open goals, or players not even committing to balls, leading to open runs on nets, or even putting yourselves in bad situations. Now, many players seem to misunderstand why rotations is so essential. You can't just play one single position the entire game. You need to be able to play goalie, defense, midfield, and striker throughout your entire game. And that's where most lower ranks struggle, and you don't really see this often in maybe Diamond, Champ, or especially Champ and Grand Champ. You do not see this often. But for the lower ranks right now, especially Plat and below, you tend to see this idea of placing one player in goalie and then either one player outfield or maybe 2 players outfield if you're playing 3s. And this is absolutely wrong. You don't want to keep one player in net the whole game and then if you're playing threes, for example, you don't want to put 2 players on the attack the entire game. Because what this really is it leads to basically a 2-on-3 the entire game. And what happens when both of those players end up getting beat? It now becomes a 1-on-1, 1-on-2, or 1-on-3 situation, which is something you want to avoid in Rocket League especially. Because no player in a plat or low lobby is going to end up surviving a 3-on-1, 2-on-1, or even maybe a 1-on-1. Now, as for the higher ranks like Diamond and Champ, you do see the more normal rotational route where one player pushes up when the other player rotates back. And then once that player rotates back, the other player pushes up. But what you also see a lot is players cutting each other off. And to be honest, I could really argue that cutting your teammate off, especially in a rotation, is worse for the team than keeping a player in goal. Because think of it like this. Let's say you're split up into first man, second man, and third man. And let's say man number 1 makes the play on the ball, man number 2 goes for the shot, and then you have man number 3 waiting for cleanup. But man number 2 misses the shot. Man number 1 will rotate back to try and get the ball, while man 3 is trying to come get the ball too. And now what happens is, if it's a miss hit, if you miss the shot, or if the player blocks it, it's now a free net, to which you basically gave them a free goal. What you really need to understand is that no matter where you are in the field, you need to always play by the rotation. Now, obviously, there are certain times where you can cut off rotation, which utilizes the principle of vision, seeing where your teammates are at all times to know if it's a good chance to maybe cut out rotations for a second and go for the ball. However, you usually want to abide by these rotations, prevent any confusion from happening on the team, and keeping the game and your team flowing fine. Because as soon as rotations gets cut, and as soon as a mistake happens in those rotations, the flow of the game, or your team especially, completely falls apart, and it's hard to regroup after it. And if you don't know how to rotate properly, there's plenty of videos on it for any mode you really want to see, for threes, for twos, for offense, for defense. There's different ways to rotate based on the game mode and based on the positioning of the ball. Now, as for principle number 4, this one's really up in the air and really just like, I just threw this in here because it personally helped me get to Grand Champ. And that's the principle of applying pressure. This is a pretty simple one, but also can get very complicated based on how you take this. Applying pressure in Rocket League is one of the most important things you will learn, and I promise you, you are going to learn it the hard way. Now, of course, it's fine to play passively in Rocket League, but that can only get you, or only will get you, so far. If you're letting the opposite team come at you the entire time, and you're just sitting there waiting for the ball to come to you, you're bound to get scored on and almost guaranteed to lose the game. Now, I know in like ranks like Diamond and Champ, possession doesn't really matter as much because the flow of the game is much different than when you get to higher ranks. In Grand Champ and above especially, whoever has possession of the ball the most is who's going to end up really winning the game and creating the most chances in general. But for ranks like Champ and Diamond and below that, it's really where the ball is most of the game. So if the ball's on the orange side most of the game and blue's attacking most of the game, then blue is going to be bound to win the game because that's just how the game is in those lower ranks. But that's why applying pressure is so important. It's to avoid stuff like those. If you're able to maintain pressure and keep them pressed in their half, they are going to panic. That's just a natural reaction players down there will get. They aren't going to be able to sustain it. They're going to crumble. They're going to start double committing. You're going to start seeing them make mistakes, and you need to learn to take advantage of that. You need to learn to press them, be quick, and apply that pressure to create the most chances you could possibly create. Because the more chances you're able to create, the more goals you're bound to score. And this can go for any rank from bronze till SSL. Every chance you create is an extra opportunity at getting a goal. And that is so crucial in Rocket League. And players seem to not learn this until High Champ 3, Low Grand Champ 1. Now, moving on from game sense, let's talk about mechanics. Now, I know this video says how I got to Grand Champ with 0 mechanics. However, of course, it is literally impossible to not use a mechanic from bronze to Grand Champ. Because fast aerialing is technically a mechanic. Recoveries is a mechanic. Wall plays are mechanics. So it's not really possible to have no mechanics when pushing up, but it is possible to do it without these very fancy ones. And the 4 main mechanics that helped me get there, or basic mechanics that you should learn when you're in like plat, maybe even gold, is firstly, accurate shooting. This especially is helpful in lower ranks. Players seem to miss the ball a lot, so if you're able to shoot accurately on net, there's a very high probability you're going to end up scoring. So that always lies in my number 1. Number 2 is basic fast aerials. Fast aerials are so crucial. If you're able to beat your opponent to the ball in the air, that is going to help you so much because that's one less player you have to worry about, because recovering from an air miss is one of the most annoying things in Rocket League and one of the longest things to recover from in Rocket League. And this sets up you and your teammate for a 1-on-2 play or even an open net if it's a last man back. Number 3, basic wall plays. Now what I mean by this is just simple, like, you know, if you're able to hit it off the wall or even like bounce on the wall and then bounce off of it, or even land properly on the wall, like nose down. It's just simple stuff like that. It's not the fancy jumping off the wall and then to an air dribble or flip reset. It's just simple, straight to the point, simple flips, simple jumps, simple dashes, simple everything on the wall. And lastly, recoveries. Now, recoveries to me is the most important mechanic in the game, no questions asked. If you're not able to recover properly from a missed ball or from a mispositioned play, you are going to get smoked every single time you're out of position or you miss a ball. If you're not able to do a simple half flip or even maybe like a mini wave dash, you need to learn those ASAP, because those are going to be so crucial for you in every single rank you play in, whether it's bronze, whether it's plat, whether it's grand champ, or whether it's SSL. Now, what I'm basically saying with all these mechanics is you need to be able to hit the ball very hard, because realistically all 4 of these are just set up for just trying to hit the ball as hard as you possibly can. And that's really the most important thing I can tell you about mechanics. You just need to be able to hit the ball very hard consistently without whiffing. All right, well, there it is. That's how I was able to get grand champ with zero mechanics in Rocket League. Now, I'm sure you guys might have other ideas or other game sense opportunities or other opinions on what I said, but those are personal things that have helped me get to where I am. And if it can even help one person, that's all that really matters to me. I'm sure I've angered many people with these statements. However, I do not take back what I said. I mean every bit of it. Now, if you have any questions on how to set any of these up, or even what order you should do them in, just comment down below. And maybe, you know, who knows, maybe I'll make a video on it someday, or maybe even you can go watch or another YouTuber who has tutorials on these things, like SpookLuke or maybe even Thanovic. Or if you really enjoyed this video and dropped a like and subbed, that would be amazing. But as always, thank you for watching, and I'm out.